All right, so for the first time, the boys are all broken up and they're left, right. Milder Milk over there, Starlight over there. She's now Annie. We got Soldier Boy in the mix. Kamiko is under attack. Welcome back to the Circle Club show. I'm here with the lovely Matthew of the Circle Club / Star Wars.
This is my government name. It's crazy.
Well, this is Vought Tower, so we start to I'll bleep it out. That way people don't even know. They're like, wait, what? That can become a gag. But yeah, man, so everyone's broken up right now. What do you think about it?
Yeah, no, it's been pretty intense, but we've seen it building up towards it. I think they've kind of done a good job at laying the groundwork. But we're really just kind of seeing characters like Annie, January, no longer Starlight, and Mothers and MM just kind of drawing the lines in the sand, where we see characters like Butcher, who's pushed the boundaries this entire time. Him and now Huey are kind of really being fight fire with fire. And I think I hope that they get back together. I think that they're all they all love each other to kind of resolve it, but I think this is just the beginning of a scary direction we see Butcher and Huey go in.
I agree, but I sort of think that because Butcher had mentioned, he's like, MM, you're the best of us, you're the one who keeps the group together, and Butcher, as confident a guy he is, he also is very insecure, I think, very not, okay with himself, and has a bunch of deeply rooted issues. And I 100%. Think he sort of does this thing where he's like, I can't be good no matter what. And I think he sort of was looking for Mother's Milk to be that guy and hope that he understands, look, I will be the guy who dies on the cross for us. But MM is just, he's like, look, if we're going to be the boys and we're going to be together, we have to stick. You can't become a Supe if the idea is that we get rid of Supes.
Exactly, yeah. And the same thing with just the way in which Butcher's used people, the way he used Kamiko and how she almost died. And then even twice, even. And then I think the biggest difference is Butcher using Soldier Boy, the man who killed who essentially was killed, either directly or indirectly killed Mother Milk's family. And that's just a line that if Butcher's willing to do whatever it takes, but Mother's Milk is then that makes us no better than them. And I think they've painted a really good job at showing that Butcher and Homelander are they're two sides of the same coin, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for that to be the reason that they got together, ironically, that Mother's Milk is Soldier Boy did this to me, and that's how in Huey, that's how we got together, is because A-Train went and killed his girlfriend. And so it's that is the root of them all coming together, right? Is that these superheroes have deeply wronged them and also have had little to no regret about it.
Yeah, they've deeply wronged them through the abuse of their own powers. So then these guys getting powers and presumably becoming corrupted by them is only just adding to the cycle of violence.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting moment with A-Train when he tried to apologize to Huey, and he was you could tell it's funny because as the audience member we know that he genuinely meant it. Yeah. But Huey doesn't have that background, I think, and obviously he's really intense and he's on Compound V. Yeah. And that's a great point about what Mother's Milk is talking about, right? He's the old Huey would have been man, this guy genuinely is trying to apologize. I think A-Train kind of realized, he's dude, I was screwed up at that point, and I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to figure this out, and you understand how complex this world is, Huey.
Yeah, exactly.
I apologize. I think Huey just had little to no remorse, which is very uncharacteristic for him. And I think it all goes back to the point that they've crossed the line.
I think it is characteristic of him because of what we've learned about him throughout this season, particularly. That in that moment, I think he understood that A-Train was being apologetic and being genuine, but it's because he's so deeply tied to an insecurity of not being strong enough and like the satisfaction he was looking for that moment, now that he finally had this newfound strength, was like, I want to fight you. And the fact that there was almost the option for a non-violent resolution, he couldn't handle that. Like,
but I think that, again, I think for us being the audience member, we know that A-Train hasn't done anything up until this point to really deserve that.
That's fair. He's helped them a little bit, so he hasn't been like the worst in the world, but he's also, he sold out Supersonic literally an episode before this.
Right.
So it's been a bumpy discovery, but you're right. It's a very good point.
It's also too, like, the same way, like, you can't really expect Mother's Milk to be forgiven of Soldier Boy. It's sort of hard to have Huey be accepting of A-Train. But to your overall point, the boys, like we said, are completely broken up. I think they will get back together, but it's going to be up to Butcher sort of coming to this understanding that Mother's Milk is correct.
Yeah.
And we also see that with Annie. She feels the same exact way about Huey.
Oh, 100%. And she's even more valid in her reasoning, just to like, for him to admit the stuff about wanting to protect her, feeling like he needs to. He has this deep trauma because of what happened to Robin, which they don't really state that much in the show, but like the pieces are there. They don't explicitly talk about it. But for someone like Annie, who has put herself in harm's way so much for other people, for her mother's dream of her being a superhero in the Seven, and then for the boys to have the advantages, the insight that they've had like throughout the show, she realized, for her, it's like she's not willing to do this anymore. She's not willing to erode her soul to be a part of this. Honestly, two terrible entities, be it the boys and Vought themselves. So, she's a character I've loved this entire show, and I'm really proud of the decisions she's made.
Yeah, and she has been someone who's never really decided to cross that path that Butcher and those guys have been on. And I think to see how this episode ended, where she ultimately says, you know what? I don't care what Homelander says. I don't care what happens or what Vought says. This is the reality of what the situation is, and I'll die fighting, being honorable. And we even see that moment too when she's in the office where Victoria Newman tries to convince her. And honestly, Victoria may have had honorable intentions. I wouldn't have bought it myself, but it still goes across to Annie's point of like, enough plotting, enough of this grandiose plan. Like, this has gone too far. And then that's exactly, that.
Yeah. So she had enough, and it's good to see.
Before we sign out, what do you think? Do you see the boys getting back together this season, or do you think it's going to take a bit?
That's a good point. I think it's going to take a bit. I think they come back together season 4. I think this is their Civil War period, similar to like what we've seen in the Avengers, where they, it took 2 movies for them to kind of get back together. So I think it's gonna be worth it. I think the boys have done a good job at making long-awaited things worth it so far. So I'm excited to see how they decide to go about things. But yeah, I think it's not going to happen this season.
All right, guys, comment down below. Let us know what you think about the boys' separation right now. Do you think it's going to happen this season? Were you shocked at all at some of the actions of the boys?
Whose side are you on?
Yeah, exactly. Whose side are you on? Are you on Annie and MM's side or Butcher and Huey's side? Let us know. Make sure you guys subscribe because we make new content every single week.